First Person Advisors is now a subsidiary of NFP, the fifth largest insurance broker in the world, combining local expertise with access to global capabilities and solutions. Learn more at firstpersonadvisors.com.
Our vision is to continue to do what we're doing, ensuring that all kids have the tools that they need in order to be successful, but then also, again, being that anchor in the community and looking at non-traditional ways to serve young people. We want to come alongside that young person and help them figure out what happens next.
Maggie Lewis runs the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis, and she's come full circle, has a lot in common with the kids she's helping to figure out what's next. She walked in their shoes as a little girl growing up. She and her brother, regulars at the Boys and Girls Club in Columbus, Indiana, while her single mom worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. A woman with a servant's heart, a passion for community, equality, kids getting a fair shot, and a trailblazer in city government. Join me for a conversation with Maggie Lewis on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Maggie Lewis has spent her entire life serving others. Literally, her first job, waitressing at Po Folks. By her senior year at Columbus East High School, she'd earned her certification as a certified nurse assistant. She went on to earn not one, but 2 degrees at Indiana State University, where she would meet her future husband, eventually moving to Indianapolis, where she dipped her toes into politics in a big way, becoming the first woman to serve as president of the Indianapolis City-County Council. An early bird, an exercise fanatic with a deep devotion to faith, family, and community, I'm pleased to be joined by Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis CEO and Executive Director, Maggie Lewis. Maggie, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, we're doing this via Zoom, another remote podcast. We're hoping to get these things in person before long, getting back to normal. We're starting to do it on our TV show. Do you feel? I feel that things are getting back to normal. Maggie, how do you feel as you get around town? Do you think things are kind of getting back to some sense of normalcy?
I really do feel like the world's opening up and the community is starting to feel like itself again. And it's nice to see people out moving again.
Yeah. How do you think Indianapolis, you're very engaged in community, obviously, and leadership positions. Your take on Indianapolis emerging from the pandemic, how do you think the city will fare?
I think Indianapolis will come out stronger than ever. I've always known this about our community. We're a very giving community, and we come together when things get rough and tough. And we did that throughout this pandemic. And so I truly believe on the other side of this, we're going to be even stronger and even better.
Yeah. You are now 3 years into your role as CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis. This is an organization, of course, has been around for a long time, I think since 1893. But I think you could make the argument that the mission of the organization may be certainly as important, if not more important now than ever, especially with the pandemic and all the challenges that youth face today. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And our mission has not changed. We've always served those who need us the most. But as things are changing in our community and our young folks are facing a lot of different obstacles, it's more important now that we are there to serve them and be available to our young folks.
Yeah, you are all about service. Your family is, so it's not surprising you would take this role. I'm sure there are many positive things you enjoy about the job, but what's the toughest part of your role as leading the Boys and Girls Clubs?
The most challenging thing is I really just want every one of our kids to be successful. I want them to have the tools that they need to truly become productive citizens. And I just want to help them to be better. And I know like it takes time and it's a process, but to the core of who I am, I truly just want the best for all of our babies. And so knowing that, there's a process that has to be followed and that I can't do it all or the Boys and Girls Club can't do it all. Sometimes at night, it really does keep me up.
Yeah, I mentioned it in the introduction, but you're a product of the Boys and Girls Clubs, right? Think back on how that shapes your life. How did that, as you reflect on that, how did that impact perhaps the person you are today?
So the Boys and Girls Club for me, it really helped mold me. My mother worked 2 and 3 jobs to ensure that we had everything that we needed, and so I wasn't left at home. I was at the Boys and Girls Club, one, to have a safe place, a place for me just to be a kid and play and run around, but then also that mentorship. When my mother wasn't available, there was a strong team at the Boys and Girls Club that truly cared about me. And I think that was so important that I was not just left at home somewhere to do what I wanted to do, or idle mind, get in trouble, right? And so it really was a support for my brother and I.
As you fast forward to today with social media and all the different things going on in modern society, does it make it tougher, for kids and for you and your staff and your team at the Boys and Girls Clubs to really make an impact and influence in a positive direction these young people?
Yeah, again, there's so much that is up against, like, our young people are up against, and so many different things that they can get involved in on the negative side. And so we're always trying to compete against social media, video games, the kiddos just hanging out on the streets, right? We're always trying to make sure that we stay relevant and that we are a place where children really want to come and be.
Yeah. As you look at the things that really, we've talked about the challenges in your job, but what really makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning? What gets you excited about your job at leading the Boys and Girls Clubs?
One, it's a great team. The Boys and Girls Club team is really amazing, folks. They're not there to get rich, right? Not for profit. They are there because they truly want to serve young people, and that excites me. But then also just the opportunity to engage with our young folks, to learn from our kids, and to hear them talk about the future. That excites me. Like, I want to grow old and see what they do with their lives. There's some amazing young people over in our space. And again, I just want to see what life brings to them.
Yeah. You mentioned your mom. She had you when she was 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very young.
Very young.
And yeah, a single mom raised you, as you said, worked multiple jobs to make sure you had what you needed. Talk about the influence that your mom is on your life, the leading by example. I think that's so important in many ways, but I'm sure her example was really impactful.
So again, she had me at 16 years of age, extremely young. So I do feel like we've grown up together. But at the end of the day, she is my first hero. I love her. I adore her. She is my mentor. She motivates me to be a better human being. Everything I am, I truly feel like I owe to my mother. Again, she worked 2 and 3 jobs to ensure that I had everything that I needed in life. I knew growing up that we weren't rich, but my mother always made time to serve other people. She served our homeless neighbors in every community that we were in. When we lived in small apartments, mommy would invite people to stay in our home. I'd come down the stairs and I'm like, we here in this little bitty space.
Who are these people?
Yeah. So she always opened our doors to those in need. She was always feeding folks. She's known in town as an amazing cook. She would always fix like these great meals for everyone. And so I watched her over the years, not only working 2 and 3 jobs, but serving others. So I knew early on in life that my calling, my job was going to be serving other people. I saw how much pride it brought to my mother. And so I knew early on that this was the path that I was going to take.
Yeah. No surprise that you're doing today what you are doing. Did you appreciate it or understand it? Do you think at the time? So many times young people, they're doing their thing, they don't really get it, and it's not till later they really understand and appreciate that kind of thing.
I don't believe, as I was growing up, I don't think I understood exactly what she was doing. But again, I always saw it and I witnessed it. And she spoke about it all the time about how important it is for us to give to those less fortunate. And again, we were poor and she was out like really hustling to take care of us. But she was talking about folks that are worse off than us. I honestly didn't realize how poor we were until I got to college. When I got to Indiana State, I was like, oh, wow, we are really poor folks, right? And then that's when it all like really start to hit home and resonate with me.
Yeah. You have a favorite or childhood memory thinking back on growing up in Columbus and that experience? What was it like? And what were maybe some of your favorite remembrances of growing up in Columbus?
Yeah. So while we, again, extremely poor folks, family was everything. Family is still everything. And I remember just hanging out with my grandmother, my cousins, always making sure that we were together on Sundays for those big Sunday dinners and meeting it up together and playing with my cousins. And again, family was so important to my mother, my grandparents, and we all just hung out together. My great grandmother had 21 kids. And so as a young
Holy
person,
cow. Wow.
yeah, I had lots of aunties and uncles. And so it was never really a dull moment growing up, right? There was always cousins around.
Yeah. You mentioned those Sunday meals. I understand your mom made a mean fried chicken and you love fried chicken, right?
Yes. Fried chicken. Again, she's an amazing cook, but fried chicken was like her specialty. And then if you throw in some macaroni and cheese and sweet potatoes, it was heaven. And so I love my mom's fried chicken. And so any chance I get at the time, I was still eating meat, I would just run home to get fried chicken for my mother.
Yeah, I was going to say you can't do that anymore. You gave up meat. You're an exercise and a physical fitness nut, and so you gave it up.
I gave up all meat about 6-7 years ago. Again, I would not eat the meat healthy, and I knew like it was not good for me. So I'm like, okay, if you're not going to bake the chicken and have it healthy, you probably should just go ahead and give up the fried chicken.
Okay. Well, Maggie, we've come to the point in the podcast now. Each week we do what we call a 2-minute drill, where we can ask a quick question, get your quick answers to a few pressing questions of the day.
That might be hard for a politician, but I'm ready.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay. Here we go. Your favorite sport?
Favorite sport. Does exercise count other than football? We'll go football. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exercise counts. And then let's go on to the next one there. Cardio or weights?
Cardio.
Okay. Early morning or late night?
Extremely early.
Yeah, you're an early, right? You get up at what, 4:30?
Yes, if I can. Like I like to get up when the birds are tweeting. Yeah, early.
Very good. Okay, when you're working out, is it music or podcasts?
Music.
Except this podcast, right? You'll listen to it.
Yes. We'll adjust.
Favorite musician?
Gospel, Kurt Franklin. More on the hip hop end, or R&B, Beyonce, Cardi B.
Good. Favorite way to relax?
I don't know how to relax, and so I'm going to say vacationing with my husband.
Okay. Oceans or mountains?
Oceans.
Most important mentor other than family, and you may have more than one, but as you think of really impactful mentors, who would they be?
Outside of family, I'm going to again say I can't stress my mother has been an amazing mentor, but Deb Hearn-Smith, she served as the CEO of the Girl Scouts for like 30 plus years. She has been an amazing mentor and professional coach. Joyce Rogers, she has been extremely supportive professionally, and then also just how to navigate serving as a CEO of a major organization.
Okay, final question. You might have to think on this for a second, but if you had an ultimate dinner, you really wanted a great conversation at dinner, you could invite 3 people, either living or deceased. Who would those 3 people be for your at your table for that ultimate dinner?
That's a great question. And so, one, I don't have to think about it. Like if I ever really get to have a conversation with my higher power, I have lots of questions about, I know we're not supposed to ask why me, but I really like to know why me, because I've done a lot of firsts in my life. And so I do have that question. Also, I would love to have a conversation with Oprah Winfrey. I would like to have her at my table, and Gandhi, right? Gandhi.
That would be an interesting table conversation, to be sure.
It would be bizarre, but I get a lot to my questions about life.
Very good. Well, when we come back, Maggie Lewis, the trailblazer, and the moments that have really defined her life. That's when the Business and Beyond podcast returns. Stay with us.
First Person Advisors is now a subsidiary of National Financial Partners, the fifth largest insurance broker and consultant in the world. Develop your total reward strategies all in one place with the combination of First Person's local expertise and NFP's global resources and integrated solutions. Learn more at firstpersonadvisors.com.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. My guest this week is Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis CEO Maggie Lewis. And Maggie, as we talked about in the first part of the podcast, you grew up in Columbus, Indiana, Bartholomew County, and went on to Indiana State University in Terre Haute. What attracted you to ISU?
The size, right? So I was extremely close with my mother. Only time I really left my mom was when I went to camp as a brownie, and so I was really nervous about leaving my mother, my brother. And so the size of Indianapolis of Terre Haute, the size of the campus really felt like home, and it felt like a safe place for me to be.
Yeah. And this was certainly, I think, would be among the defining moments in your life, because at Indiana State, that's where you met your husband, right? And he was a football player.
He was a football player. And let him tell it, he was the best football player that ever came out of Indiana State University.
I love it. How did you guys meet at ISU?
Okay, this is going to sound really random, but in the common area, they were making videos and lip syncing the videos. And I walked past this common area and I saw my future husband making a video and dancing and singing to Usher.
That's great. That's outstanding. And you were very active at Indiana State. You were a member of the Sparkettes. As an ISU graduate, I know about the Sparkettes. Tell me about that experience.
So being a Sparkette, I feel like I grew as a person. I got to meet a lot of different folks on campus. I wasn't forced to stay in this small group. Being a Sparkette challenged me physically, mentally. Back then we had weigh-ins and we had to dance for our spots. And so it really forced me to become who I am and to challenge me and to help prioritize. You had to study, you had to make sure you made the grades in order to perform. And so it forced me to grow up. Okay. Now you said your husband is a dancer, I guess, because he was doing that video. You're a dancer. Do you guys ever have a dance off? You would be quite a couple. Not a dance off, but we do enjoy dancing. That's one of our favorite pastimes. That's great. You got an advanced degree from Indiana State, your undergrad and master's. Were you always, engaged and focused on academics? Was that important to you? Yeah, very important. And so while my mother had me at an extremely young age and dropped out of school, she always stressed the importance of getting a good education. She felt like that education was going to change things for me. And so I was always focused on my education. What brought you to Indianapolis? So I feel like Indianapolis is home. Growing up, I moved from Columbus to Indianapolis back and forth. My mom was chasing, a good job, if you will. And so after graduating from Indiana State, I felt like, Indianapolis was home and I just wanted to return home. You, again, we talk about Maggie Lewis, the trailblazer, and certainly a defining moment for you. You were elected to the Indianapolis City-County Council in 2008. First of all, what prompted you to get into politics? I mean, was this something you have always wanted to do? So I've always was fascinated with politics, but never did I think that I would run for public office. Nothing about my upbringing, the things that I did ever said that, hey, Maggie Lewis, you should run for public office. The position came open and I was very engaged in the community and several people approached me about running for public office. I was afraid and it may not seem like it now, but I am a very shy person. And so the thought of putting myself out in front of everyone was terrifying. So lots of prayers, lots of conversations. And then I decided, the only reason that I wasn't going to do it was because I was afraid. And if that was the reason why I wasn't going to do it, I needed to jump. And then I jumped and the rest is history. Yeah, well, history indeed. You made history becoming the first president of the Indianapolis City-County Council, a role you had for, I think, 5 or 6 years. Talk about that position, because you can't hide as the city-county council, and you certainly can't hide as president of the council. That is a very difficult, high-profile, high-pressure job. Talk about that experience. So first, I would say when I got elected as the president of the City-County Council, I remember that night specifically looking in the crowd. And after Ryan Vaughn passed the gavel, there was a group of older African-American ladies back in the audience. I looked at them and the pride that they had and the tears that this one lady had really impacted me. I knew from that moment on, like this task, this job was bigger than Maggie Lewis, and I really had to bring my A game. And so while I was serving as the president of the council, I took that position seriously. I did my homework, and I tried to represent the council in a way that brought honor, but myself, my family, and all the women who have fought for me to be in a position like that.
Yeah, some people, I think, the trailblazer role, they might shy away from it or play it down. Others really embrace it and feel it's important to embrace it. Sounds like you really feel it's important for you to embrace that and what you accomplished and what it can mean for others.
Yeah, I tried to embrace it. While it was very nerve-wracking at times, again, I felt like it was my assignment and that I really needed to bring honor to the position and to other women of color, other women in general that serve in politics.
Thinking back, especially during your tenure as president, I know there were a number of challenging times and issues, but was there one that stuck out as you think back, or maybe a couple of especially trying issues that were particularly difficult?
So I will say that there's a couple of policies that were extremely difficult. The policy around mass transit, getting additional dollars for mass transit, pre-K as a space that the city of Indianapolis really did not tap into. And so getting dollars committed from the city of Indianapolis to support pre-K for all young kids was extremely important to me. And then the other one, you can really Google the whole shifting of council president, that 90-day period when I was out as the council president and all the drama that went around that process.
Yeah. Leaders, effective leaders, many times can feel like they're out on an island, kind of alone. Were there any moments like that for you when you said, boy, this is really tough. I'm out here. I gotta figure this thing out.
So the one thing that I've never felt like I was alone while serving in that position. One, my husband's my biggest cheerleader outside of my mother. My family was always there. And then I created a team around me that was very supportive, who I was able to bounce ideas off of. And then also the team felt like they were comfortable telling me when they felt like I was going down a path that really wasn't good for me. And so I've always felt supported, and I didn't have people around me that would just tell me what I wanted to hear. So never felt alone.
Yeah, and that's important. You really feel as though that team, your family, and that team around you was always there to provide that support you needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So never felt, even during the challenging times on the council, I never felt all alone. While my picture may have been out there, I've always felt supported and was okay with it.
Yeah. You mentioned mass transit, not to get into political issues here, but any thoughts on the future of mass transit here? Obviously, it was a hot button issue then. It remains that. The pandemic has certainly, unfortunately, had an impact there. Any thoughts on the future of mass transit here in Indianapolis?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to be a lightning rod issue. However, it's an issue that I'm very passionate about. I think it's so important that people are able to move about our community freely, regardless if they have a car, right? I think it's important that they have access to jobs, to education, to childcare providers. And I think we as a community should make sure that everyone has access to reliable transportation.
Yeah, and that access you mentioned, and the people who support it, from FedEx and the big employers out at the airport to the tech community, who talk a lot about the fact that having mass transit is an asset, is a selling point, if you will, for young professionals and that talent that we need to get here.
Absolutely. And I really do believe a city our size should have mass transit that is reliable and dependable, and that you can catch a bus at any time of day or night.
Yeah. You mentioned mentors earlier, and I'm always intrigued and interested in the impact of mentors, because I think they can certainly have an amazing impact on people. I wanted to ask you about three just to go into a little more depth and have you describe what they have meant to you. You've talked a bit about your mom being your number one mentor. Talk about what her impact and how that's really, again, shaped your leadership style and the person you are today.
So my mother told me early on that I was called to do great things. She's always been my biggest cheerleader. She never defined what great things were, but she always said, Maggie Ann, you were called to do great things. You're going to go on to do big things. And I've heard that my entire life. Also, I watched my mother struggle, and she is the strongest person that I know. And so I feel like I get my fight from my mother, my courage from my mother. And to this day, if I find myself somewhat fearful, I can call her and get that pep talk that I need to go ahead and to continue to fight, right? In politics, people talk about you a lot. And she is quick to remind me, they talked about Jesus, Maggie Ann, why do you not think that they're going to talk about you? And so she's my everything. She's been a great support mentor. I consider her a friend, but she's also very old school, and she reminds me that she is not my girlfriend. So, but again, I consider her my buddy. Right? I talk to her pretty much every day, some days multiple times a day.
Yeah. Deborah Hearn-Smith, longtime CEO leader at the Girl Scouts here in Indianapolis.
So she has been a great support as well. When I took the position as CEO of Boys and Girls Club, it's a very large board. I really didn't know how to navigate such a large size board. And she has made herself available to answer those questions that I have about navigating a board, about how to position an organization, all the things that I'm experiencing as a new CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis. She's been there, done that. And she has basically opened her life, her book up to me, and just been a tremendous support.
And Joyce Rogers, executive with Indiana Black Expo, a leader there. And is she still at IU, at Indiana University?
At IU. And so she's been able to help me with the high profile types of situations, right? Being able to just go to her and talk about what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and what moves I should make. Now, she is very strategic. And I love that about Joyce. Like, if there's someone that's playing the tape to the end and thinking about which moves needs to happen next, that's Joyce Rogers. And she's been a great support. Politically, I never given him a title, but Ryan Vaughn, who was the president before I became president, has been an amazing support when it comes to the City-County Council. And when I was elected president, he too just opened up and shared a lot of information with me and let me know where the bombs were hidden, and just been a tremendous support politically.
As we kind of wind down here, let's talk about the future. Indianapolis, as you look at the future for the city of Indianapolis, obviously we're coming out of a very tough year plus period for the city and cities all over the country. How do you see Indianapolis 5, 10, 15 years down the road? There's been so much going on in downtown Indianapolis. Did an amazing job pulling off the entirety of March Madness a few months ago. And we've got the college football championship game coming up, a lot of big events. What do you see for the future of Indianapolis? And do you see any hurdles that need to be cleared for Indianapolis to achieve what it can become?
So I believe we're going to have to address crime in our community. We cannot overlook that. I think the politicians, and I put myself in that category, we're going to have to put our politics aside and really figure out what's not working in our community. In order for us to continue to be successful as a community overall, we've got to tackle the crime issue, right? So that's one of the biggest hurdles I think we're up against. I think we have the tools that we need to continue to be successful as a city, as a community, but we have to tackle crime. And then also, this is a social service worker in me. We have to continue to support those community-based organizations. We have to get to the people who really need us, and so that they can be successful. We don't have to define what success looks like for them, but we have to make sure that we're touching every person in our community.
Yeah. Well, you talk about neighborhood development too. You're, I think, District 10, correct?
Correct.
And that includes Lafayette Square.
Absolutely.
And then the northwest side, and that's an area that has faced challenges, but it has some positive things I think going on. I know the international marketplace and some other things there. As you look at your neighborhood and other neighborhoods around Indianapolis, what do you foresee for neighborhood development? Outside of downtown.
So again, I think, we all recognize that downtown Indy is the economic hub for our community, for the state of Indiana. However, I do believe that over the next 2 to 5 years that you will see us really investing into our communities like the Lafayette Square area, like Broad Ripple, all those areas where really people work, live, play. Like it's important that we share the love and really build up those communities as well.
How about for Maggie Lewis? What's next on the horizon for Maggie Lewis? I know you're still early on, 3 years or so into your role at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indiana. But as you look at your role in politics, perhaps, what do you foresee out on the horizon?
So I'm not sure that I can answer that question, and I stumble. On a personal note, like my focus is my son, right? I have a sophomore now in high school, and my husband and I want to make sure that he's successful and that we're able to get him through high school and off to college. That's a priority. And then when it comes to my career and politics, I just want to continue to serve, right? I can't say that 5 years from now, I want to run for this. I haven't really outlined my life in that way. But at the end of the day, I'm committed to serving the community. And right now, I feel like I got the best of both worlds. I'm able to serve as the majority leader on the City-County Council and serve as the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club. And so my commitment is to continue to serve as long as I can. And so I'll be waiting to see what my next assignment is. But again, I'm hoping and prayerful that there's more to come.
Very good. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast this week, Maggie. Thank you for your service to the city in so many ways. And it's been great to hear your story of growing up in Columbus, Indiana, and through Indiana State and beyond. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. It is a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can check out all of our podcast episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.